Good morning. Today is tax day. It is. It is the 15th of April of the year 2024. And today we have a very interesting episode, to say the least. To say the least. Very interesting episode ahead for you. And again, today's tax day. If you haven't done your taxes, I think it's too late at this point. Is it not too late? Can you still do your taxes at this point?
You can apply for an extension.
So apply for those extensions if you haven't.
As long as it's filed by today, it's fine. But if you can't do it, then apply for an extension today.
Yes, definitely do that. File for extensions. Today we are talking about physical health and what that has to do with our spiritual lives, and a little bit more on that in the coming minutes. You are listening to the Dear Church podcast, or the DCP as they say.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be.
Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. My name is Sam Yang.
I'm Chun-Suk.
And we have with us Pastor Eugene, and we are talking about something that's very interesting, something that's widely discussed in the world and has not only physical ramifications, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual elements as well. What is that? It is our physical health, and more specifically, obesity and the role that it plays in the health concerns of the American population. According to the WHO, is it the WHO, right? Not the WHO.
They say the WHO. The WHO is a band.
According to the WHO, 1 in 8 people are now living with obesity. And, obviously this has to do a lot with a lot of factors. We're not discounting those factors. I know all over the world there are factors that limit access to healthy food. And right now it's fast food and other fattening foods that are the cheapest to buy, resulting in an increased level of obesity in other countries or lower income neighborhoods. But even as one of the wealthiest countries in the world, America has the highest level of obesity in the world, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. A poll in 2018 revealed that 40% of the total adult population aged 15 years and older are considered obese. According to the CDC, and I don't think we need the CDC to tell us this, but obesity is associated with the leading causes of death, including diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and other types of cancer. And I want to discuss physical health because I think it has to do with stewardship and treating the body as a temple. Our church context, we love fitness. A lot of people in our church. People run marathons. People lift heavy weights. People do CrossFit.
You would have ran a marathon.
At this point, yeah.
How was it?
It was okay.
What was your time again?
I don't know, man. How do I know? Because we're recording on Friday and the marathon's on Saturday. But to be honest with you, one of the reasons why I wanted to do an episode on this was during one of my long runs. To kind of give some background information, on Easter morning, I decided to run 20 miles because that was part of my training. And during the 20 miles, I just kind of wondered, why am I doing this? What is the point of doing this? This isn't even beneficial for my health. 20 miles is not beneficial for your health. And it made me think, at what point are we obsessing over certain things that it's unhealthy? At what point are we dieting too hard? At what point are we taking supplements that are not healthy? At what point are we doing that? Because obviously, we could look at an obese person and say, well, that person's unhealthy, but we can look at an extremely ripped, shredded person and still say that person's unhealthy as well. And so I wanted to kind of get into, I guess, the mindset, the worldview of health and maybe unhealth. Is that a word? Dishealth?
Imhealth.
Imhealthiness, and just kind of see how we are to view that as Christians. And And I wanted to read 1 Corinthians 6:19 to 21st because I think this is the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds when they think about health is 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. And so what does that mean, treating your body as a temple? You know, again, one end, we completely trash our bodies and lead ourselves down a path that's unhealthy. And that's whether you are obese or whether you are having 3% body fat. You can still be unhealthy in both conditions. And so what does it mean to treat your body as a temple? How do you glorify God in your body?
Well, that's a good question. I think you've gone to the two extremes, and we should take care of our bodies. And if we take care of our bodies as we would a temple, then there are two things to keep in mind. Number one is, what is the temple for? It's not for yourself. So even if you have a super fit body and it looks great and healthy as can be, if it's simply for vanity, then you know that's not treating your body as a temple. A temple houses something. What does it house? Especially if we understand it in the light of 1 Corinthians, then we're housing the Holy Spirit. That being the case, then our temple should be most uplifting to the Holy Spirit, not ourselves. Secondly, understanding that would mean that to the best of our ability, we would make sure that the temple would be able to showcase the Holy Spirit well, if other people would see that, right? When you walk by the temple of, Artemis back in Ephesus or something like that, or even if you go to Europe and now look at the old temples, they were showcasing things, even with their, brilliant archaeology, the way they put things together, the artistry that you saw, the manpower, the kind of material that they used, all of this stuff was to kind of showcase the God that they would be housing, that they would be worshiping in this place. And so number two would be, if we understand who we are to house, or who indwells us or our temples, then everything should be pointing to their glory.
So you talked about vanity, and I think this is kind of like a slippery topic for a lot of people, because even if we do something for vanity, we could easily lie and say, oh, it's for health. But what does it mean to exercise or treat your body a certain way with vanity in mind? Because isn't, for example, wearing clothes for vanity? I mean, sure, it has a function. It covers your nakedness and it has like pockets and stuff like that. But isn't wearing specific clothes, specific colors, isn't that also for vanity, for beauty? So where do we distinguish the line between doing something for health and beauty versus doing it for vanity? Or is it kind of all mushed together?
No, I enjoy that we have Christian freedom in all these things, especially when it comes to clothes and eating. I know some people take it to one end where they won't wear anything. They'll just wear like something they made themselves out of hemp or something.
Oh my goodness.
And, they just wear dreadlocks or whatever that, like, people will come in.
It's not like a hippie?
Yeah, like a hippie.
Oh, okay.
And they think that this is the best use and, best way they could steward their time, energy, and money. And there's the other side, which, if they have clothes, they have clothes. Who cares what they wear? And then obviously there's another aspect where people will take it too far and they'll only wear, Versace or something like that.
Ooh, Versace. That's a song.
Okay.
It is.
I mean, me personally, I'm not really a Versace guy. I'm more of an Hermes guy.
Oh, Hermes.
Yeah. So
are they both French?
Yeah, and so I mean, there's a whole range of stuff. I enjoy Christian freedom in that. I don't think that we are to judge quickly, though. So there are people that judge very quickly. If a person is a little unkempt, they'll judge them. Or if they're too put together, they'll judge them. So we have a culture that judges so quickly now, and I do believe it's because of social media. It just kind of magnifies and perpetuates the sinful desire that we have to judge. So let's start off our podcast this way. We're not here to judge. But we'll tell you what the biblical principles are, and where we've gone so far away from them that it is a matter of discernment that we've lost, because we either judge too quickly or we don't judge at all. And that's neither. We're called to neither. Even in 1 Corinthians, Paul says, in 5, I believe, Paul says, aren't we supposed to judge the one in the church, And so we are to judge. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? That's what Paul says, right?
So I guess something that I really wanted to get into and perhaps kind of get your thoughts on, and for our people, especially their churches, like how do we draw the line again between vanity and health? Like how do we do that? Because we live in a culture where, kind of like before, because of social media, we see pictures of extremely fit males and females, and they're just littering our social media feeds, and we want to be like them, and most of them are on different supplements that are not the healthiest for you. And so I think looking up to that kind of stuff, it makes your mind think that that's what you're supposed to look like, and so you start idolizing, you start coveting, and all these different things. So where do you draw the line between health and maintaining health for the purpose to use your body for the glory of God versus doing it out of vanity? I feel like it's a thin line.
Well, I think we have good examples like Alan Richardson that you look up to so much.
I love that man. Yeah. He's the actor from the show Reacher.
Yeah, not really a kid-friendly show.
No, it's definitely not friendly, like to anybody.
But yeah, there are people who build their bodies to, the ultimate peak physique.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think we could respect that. I do think that that's admirable. I don't know if the guy worships his own self or his own body. I don't think he does, but I don't know if he does. But at the same time, let's take what you said and bring it to the other end, where people don't take care of their bodies at all. They're just worried about what they're going to put in their mouths and how they're going to fill their bellies, and they are extremely obese. That is definitely that's a bad thing. You don't want to be obese. And so, people don't want to be obese, or I don't know. These days, I guess fat is the new in or something. We can't say anything about fat people.
Yeah.
And what do you mean? If your friend was fat, you would say, I think you should lose weight. And if the friend goes, well, I think I'm beautiful the way I am, I don't think you would say, yeah, I agree. Forget I said that. You would say, what would you say, Sam? What would you tell your friend who's fat or obese?
I would say, I think you should exercise. We should work out. We should work out together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're just things like that. I get it that we don't want to say, like, to random people, hey, you're fat, like if they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
That might be a little much. But, if it's your friend, someone that you care about, even if it's a brother or sister in church and it looks like they're letting themselves go, you really want to be mindful of them, because being overweight is not helpful in any regard.
No.
It's not going to help you anywhere. Honestly, it's not going to help you anywhere. Like, I'm on the heavier side, and I know because my bed caves in on my side. And so every few months I have to flip the bed. So that caves in on my wife's side, and then I get to use what my wife slept on, because she's a very light woman. But yeah, these beds are not made for 200 plus people.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you are obese, we're talking about, what is it? The definition of obese, 25% body fat or more, or 30%?
It was on your BMI.
Yeah, BMI is 30.
Obese is if your BMI is 30 or higher.
Yeah, so let's just take that standard or that measurement. If your BMI is 30 or higher, then perhaps it's time for you to cut down. And there are ways that you can do research on to cut it down. But then if let's say your body fat percentage is 5% or something like that, maybe it's a little much,
Yeah.
There was a time where Junzig and I knew somebody who would bring their packed lunches to the diners we would go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would eat it in their car before joining us in the diner. I think that's a bit much, right? What do you think?
A little bit.
Yeah, you would have like broccoli, chicken, and brown rice, and just eat it in the car secretly, and then not get anything at the diner.
Yeah. See, that was a bad place. I was in a bad place. And that's why I'm saying, I feel like this is a podcast that I need to listen to, or I should have listened to 10 years ago. But I guess that's the question. We know that either end of the spectrum is not good for you in terms of health. It's not good for you. Not only physically, but also there are studies that have come out that's mentally not good for you, emotionally not good for you as well, to be obese or to be at 2% body fat. It's just not, it's not good for you.
Well, let's bring it down. We'll try to put it down to one basic principle. And you can have this even if you're not obese or have that 5% body fat. I just noticed that your standard was 2 and I put it to 5.
No, because 2 is just like you would die
It's
soon.
impossible.
Yeah, you would die.
It's impossible. I heard to be under 3. But
yeah.
Anyway, and that is called eating out of anxiety. Or not eating out of anxiety. So it's anxiety-ridden eating or non-eating. So whatever you're eating or not eating, if anxiety is over it, that is the sin. Okay? So you could eat too much and then therefore become obese. You could eat too little because eating makes you anxious about gaining weight. So you could be literally like bulimic or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that would also be anxiety-induced non-eating. But you could be in the middle because your metabolism is so great. You could still be anxiously eating, when you're stressed and you eat, or when you're stressed and you don't eat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is still anxiety-ridden eating or non-eating. That, my friends, is a sin. So because we're not supposed to be anxious. Jesus tells us, do not be anxious about anything. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow has problems of its own. First Peter talks about how we are supposed to cast our anxieties or cares onto Jesus, onto him. And so if we're doing that, then we wouldn't be casting our anxieties into eating or non-eating. So you can be in the whole spectrum, whether you're fat or overly skinny, whatever it is. But if it's anxiousness that drives you to eating or not eating, that is something that we should challenge you on, especially from the biblical standpoint.
So what you're saying is, just kind of going back to our bigger question that we asked at the beginning of 1 Corinthians 6, what you're saying is that for us to treat our body as a temple of the Holy Spirit and to glorify God in our body, it's to understand that our bodies belong to God, that it's not ours first and foremost. And it's also to know that we are to trust in God and not be anxious about what we look like or how skinny, how fat, whatever it might be. Insert adjective here, what we may look like. That's what you're saying.
Some people will be more prone to store fat than other people.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Some people will be more prone to, be skinnier.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily translate to health or well-being. That's the point. And if we have a standard, then what is that standard? That's where I say there is Christian freedom, where some people just might be more big-boned. Some people might, just store fat more readily than other people. But then at the same time, those people need to take even more care not to gain that extra poundage because it's unhealthy for them. And if you're overly skinny, maybe you need to gain a few pounds because if you're overly skinny, then, now we know all your joints are not lubricated, not protected. It's the skinny people who have like these back issues and things like that.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough fat surrounding, their core.
Yeah.
Their muscles are not developed enough for, the fat to kind of help them. So now we know all these things, because we are, even though we're not perfect in it, we are increasing in our knowledge, although we are not perfect in it by far. We don't know everything. But as far as we know, these are things that we should be aware of and we should take care. And that's how you take care of your body. You know your body. You study it. I'm sure you do. And if you know the basic simple things, then do the simple things that need to be done. If you need to stop eating, then stop eating. If you need to eat a little more but more healthily, then do that. I think there is a side of gluttony that we need to address, where it's an overindulgence of something, right? Overindulgence. I think we went over in our gluttony episode, but if you overindulge in eating, that is gluttony. That is a sin. And that overindulge, I think that's what people want to define. What is that, 10,000 calories? Or is it 20,000 calories?
Yeah.
That's not the point. That's not what the Bible says. Gluttony is when you can't help but to eat something. And that is something where, indulge in something, right? That's something where we need to put our knife to our throat, like it says in Proverbs 23:2. You got to put your knife to your throat when you're given into it, especially if the king is in front of you, because you have no idea what your priorities are. And so those are things that we need to keep mindful of. So if you are, let's say, heavy set and you think you need to lose weight, good, then lose it. If you're skinnier on the skinnier side and you think you need to gain weight, then good, gain it well. I do believe that there is a laziness component even to skinny people gaining weight because they don't want to do the work in putting in the healthy food because they're not given into chips. They're not given into greasy foods like maybe some other people, so they just won't eat. That's also laziness. And so if you're skinny and you're just not eating enough and you just need to prepare more food or ingest more food to get to a healthy body weight, then you should do that. And so there is a spectrum, and I do believe that, things are against you. I sympathize. It's easier to get McDonald's. It's easier to buy a Wendy's, although not with the pricing now, but, fast food is easier.
Yeah.
But that just means that unless it's an emergency, perhaps you should prep your meals.
So what you're saying then is, as a Christian, understanding that this body is not your own, regardless of what you look like, your ultimate goal is to be healthy so that you could glorify God in and through your body, right?
You take care of your bodies like you would take care of the temple. Your upkeep is a priority then, right?
Yeah.
So upkeeping your body is a priority. So your body is not going to be the same as when you were, Sam, when you were 23, now that you're 33. It's not going to be the same, but how do you upkeep a 33-year-old body as best you can? If you upkept it the way you did when you're 23, that would not be optimal.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you should keep your body as healthy as possible. And that's why we do the research. We do our own studies. We ask around for wisdom. We see who's a similar body type and what they've gone through. And then it helps us upkeep our own body. I'm not saying we have a perfect science down, but because we don't, it keeps us humble. And that makes us strive even more to do that. And so, if you need to diet, if you are extremely overweight and you in your heart, you think I need to diet, then why aren't you?
Yeah.
Do it. That's the point. If you believe that your body is the temple, then do it. Why are you, being negligent? It's not a good thing, because if you're negligent with your body, then it carries over into the spiritual realm. What else are you being negligent in? And that's, I think, a place of deep contemplation that you should be in. I get it that people kind of lose weight for a time and then they gain it right back and all that stuff. It's because it's a constant thing. You can't just, say, oh, I'm saved, let me go back to sinning. It doesn't work like that spiritually either. So the body's the same. If, let's say you were like 600 pounds and you went on The Biggest Loser and then you went down to like 180, and then all of a sudden you jump back up to 600 pounds and you're like, yeah, this is unsustainable. Why is that unsustainable?
Yeah.
Because you did go down to 180 and you realized this is a good place to be in, but it took that much work. It took that much effort. It took that much discipline. Yeah, you got to hold to that. That's what it is. You got to hold to that. And because the other way, being 600 pounds is not sustainable at all. Like, you're just not going to live, let alone live well.
But I think as Christians, I understand that we are supposed to consider our health because, again, our bodies are for the glory of God. And how can you glorify God when you're not taking care of your body. Like if you're physically unable to do the work that God has set for you, then you are not glorifying God in your body. And so yes, you want to be physically, fit and healthy. But I think even as a Christian, we can very, very easily lie to ourselves. There's a huge movement right now, and my daughter has the book to prove it. She received a book. My wife received a gift from a coworker who gave a gifted a book for my daughter, and it was it plays a song when you read it, and it says, "I love my body from my head to my toes." Mm-hmm. It's a body image loving book for toddlers, and so I was like, okay, she doesn't understand anything yet, so sure. But when she gets a little bit older, I'm gonna toss this book. It's not. It just kind of, I think it promotes a wrong type of thinking. It's because I'm just perfectly me. I love everything about me. No matter what anyone says, I love me for me, and all this other stuff. And I understand the message that they're trying to promote in going against, I guess, the negative body image stuff that's going on with social media and stuff like that. But I don't know if that whole body image campaign is helpful either. And so how, as Christians, how do we navigate that?
Yeah, you have a good sense. That's a good sense, because I don't know if everybody would have caught that. So what we've done is we've tried to go against, let's say, a dangerous, idea that when kids feel like, oh, I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or I'm ugly, that kind of thing, we need to flip it to say everything about you is beautiful.
Right.
This is where the Christian doctrine comes into play, and that really helps. This ideology that we have, this philosophy that we live by, is basically summed up in what Martin Luther said, where he said, we are simul justus et peccator. Mm-hmm. We're simultaneously justified and a sinner. That means we are not perfect, but we have been made perfect, and we will be made perfect by Christ in sanctification. So there is this idea where we know we're not perfect, and yet we will become perfect. And yet we are made perfect, that kind of thing. And so understanding that and putting that to our life now would be, I'm not the best that I can be now. Let's be real. But I will work to get to that place. I will sweat. I will do all this to get to that place. You know why? Because Jesus Christ has bought me, and now I am saved by his grace. So because of that, I can now work. I can now put in, the sweat and have it bear fruit, because that fruit is promised by the Holy Spirit. And so understanding that becomes my mantra in life. And I even want to have that play out in my physical body. I want to be able to say everything about me, I want to have God glorified in. Yeah. And so, there are times that we fluctuate, just like our spiritual lives and our walks and journey. We can be overweight for a time, but not forever. And we can be skinny for a time, but hopefully not forever, right? We don't want to be unhealthy forever. That's the point. Our beauty standards have changed, where every country has its own. I get it. But that's why I think the Bible is great, because it leaves room for that Christian freedom. And so whatever the beauty standard is, what is it based off of? And is it extreme, or is it not enough? All that stuff, that's what we can discuss. That we can have a conversation about that, which hopefully we will. But let's get, the basic principle is too much is bad, too little is bad. And that's pretty evident. Hopefully we'll see that it's evident. So you're seeing a too much on the positive body imagery, that kind of thing. Body image positivity, whatever we want to call it, right? So that's too much. We're going too far, because what we end up doing is we worship the body. That's not what the temple is for. The temple isn't there to worship itself. And that's what this whole body image positivity campaign is doing. You're saying you're just perfect the way you are. Yeah. Untrue. And then you're like, oh, you're saying they're ugly then? It's like, what? That's not what we said either. So people can only think in these extremes, unfortunately, to their own detriment and ultimately their demise. Because if you think this way, then you can never, ever be satisfied. Because first of all, you probably know that you're lying to yourself when you say I'm perfect the way I am. And you just perpetuate your life according to that lie. I think extremely obese people know that they're extremely obese unless they have some kind of mental disorder. Possible. But if you know you're obese and you continue to tell yourself, I'm perfect the way I am, is that helping you? Or are you perpetuating a lie in your own soul that is going to damage your soul? Because if you continue to lie to yourself, not only are you damaging others because they have to live according to your lie, which is the whole trans ideology thing, but you're damaging yourself by lying to yourself. You are not going to be okay. And that's why all these people have these mental disorders. The suicidality rate is going up. And it's because you're not living in reality. I'm not saying it's going to be eradicated once people get it. Suicide rates are always going to be there because for other factors and reasons, but we're talking about why it went up. And why people can't connect what we are doing with our physical bodies, both sexually and, health-wise, and suicidality going up, right?
Yeah.
Why can't people start connecting that? I hope people will wake up and recognize your body is a temple to God and you treat it well because of God. And when you do well, it glorifies God. And if you think that you're doing it only for yourself and then that's why you fail or you give up because who cares about the self, or you're doing it for yourself, or look at me, I'm so great, it's still all vanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my fear is even with something as simple as positive body image. And like you said, you may be lying to yourself, but the more you tell yourself that you're beautiful, no matter what anyone says, I think that gets you into a mindset of you're never going to be wrong. Even in the future, it goes beyond physical, I think. It even goes to your sins. Like the Bible tells you that what you did is a sin, but like, oh, you're okay. You're perfect the way you are. And it's going to keep on going deeper into that type of mentality, which I think is extremely harmful.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's when we hear stories like success stories. Everybody said I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
But then I made it. Here I am.
Yeah.
Which is a very ironic thing to say. And unfortunately, a lot of young people grow up believing that this is the case.
Mm.
What everybody said you couldn't do it, then how in the world did you get to where you are? Because obviously someone said you could do it. That's why you're there. Someone hired you. Someone thought you had talent. Someone said, I'm going to teach you. Someone casted you. Someone said, I should put this kind of makeup on you and this dress on you. Someone gave you this script. Someone put you up for this movie and shot you and directed you in a certain way because they thought you could do it. And here you are. And yet you're like, everybody said I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But here I am. That is so narcissistic and so not based on reality. That's why people are like, well, I don't care what anybody thinks. I think I'm this. No. If that were the case, you wouldn't have even said that. Why would you even have to say it? Because you're pushing back against what everybody says because it does affect you. It does matter. So I would think that then what's more important is not what everybody thinks, but what the people that are, significant think, meaning your church, your family. What do they think? It's important what they think. And people that are walking alongside you in this journey. If it's like, oh, nobody thought I could do it, but I did it anyway. That's also a lie because someone obviously thought you could do it. That's why you are where you are.
Yeah.
No one can be whatever they are now alone. That's an impossibility. That's like saying, Sam, you say, I can be a billionaire and I don't care what anybody thinks. Or, no, I don't need anyone's approval. All right, then tomorrow be a billionaire by yourself. Impossible. Someone has to buy your goods. Someone has to give you money. Someone has to invest in you. Someone has to do something for you. You cannot be a billionaire on your own. You don't just get, a slab of cash on your lap tomorrow morning. It doesn't work that way. And so I think that is unfortunate when we have been convinced that even if the world says no, we can say yes, that kind of thing. That doesn't work that way. I get it's romantic. The world was against us, but here we are,
Bonnie
we're
and
in
Clyde.
love. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, dude, Bonnie and Clyde dead.
Yep.
They got shot to death. And so we romanticize that and things like that. But it's not true. It's not reality. Wake up, I get it. The world can say no when God says yes. And God, guess what? God gives us a church. And if the church is in line with God's will, and they continue to pray, they continue to worship the Lord, they continue to follow his laws, this is a good church. And it's okay that they are alongside you and they give you encouragements or they discourage you from doing certain things. It's a wonderful place to be in, actually. And I hope that many more people can be in a community where the church loves them and they can exhort them. They can even give them admonishment, what they can encourage them.
So speaking of what you just talked about, I'm watching this Korean drama right now. And it's like the best
Please stop.
that I've seen in the world. It's so good.
Wait, what does this have to do with anything?
You just talked about like relationships.
That's the only connection. Well, I think it's interesting that in this world today, if someone says, I'm going to love my body, whether they're obese or overly skinny, if you give them any pushback, they'll say like, oh, like you're promulgating this idea of like body dysmorphia.
Also, can I just add something? The people that say, I love my body are always on the extremely skinny or the extremely overweight category. No one that is healthy ever says, I'm going to love my body. And if they did, people would just think that they're like self-centered and egotistical.
Or there's this thing I'm sure you both are aware of. I'm not sure if every listener is, but there is this understanding that if you start to lift weights and you start to body build, that you hate your body more. You realize how unfit, unhealthy, and weak you are. But that doesn't lead you into depression. It pushes you to lift more
Steroids.
weights,
Yeah. Oh.
exercise better.
Yeah.
Did you say steroids?
Yeah, I thought that's where you're going.
Or trend.
That's crazy.
Not that we would ever promote trend here.
No.
Yeah. Maybe just some T boosters
TRT.
or TRT.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Sam is going to promote his own brand soon.
If I would be a billionaire then. That's how.
But yeah, hopefully au natural.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you realize that you are weak and you need to be strong. It puts you in a more humble place. So you would think then if the trend continues, the stronger you are, the more humble you should be because you realize how not strong you are or how strong you should be. It's the same with the whole island of knowledge metaphor that I gave a few weeks ago in the sermon, where as your island of knowledge grows, your shores of, ignorance also grow, meaning the more you know, the more you recognize what you don't know. That is true knowledge. That means you really do know. But if the more you think you know and you don't think you don't know, then you are more towards the, being just fooling yourself. You're in la la land. You are not in a place where you can really help anybody. Or I would say you're not in a place that's really even, healthy for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, double negatives always get me, so I had to think about that one for a little bit. But I want to connect what you just said with beauty, because I think health and beauty are oftentimes linked together, almost forcibly, even. But I'm curious, even this idea of beauty, how is a Christian supposed to think about beauty? Because, like you said, every culture, and I want to say even like every decade or every generation has a different idea of what beauty is. And so it's very, very subjective. And, people always say beauties are in the eyes of the beholder. It's true, but the beholder is influenced by the standards of beauty that society sets. And so I'm just kind of curious, throughout generations, there have been different standards of beauty. As a Christian, understanding that we are all made in the image of God, how do we view physical beauty, and how do we do we pursue it? Do we not care about it? Do we how do we kind of think about this whole beauty subject?
Yeah. Proverbs 31 does say that beauty is fleeting and charm is deceptive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different kind of beauty than what we want to address here. I hope that's the case. We're not just talking about outward beauty. We're talking about the inner beauty.
Right.
That is that is something to be revered. And so I believe that all beauty must reflect truth. If it doesn't reflect truth, it is not beauty and it cannot be beauty. So you said that throughout societies and history, there were different standards of beauty. But
Right.
my question would be, what aspect of truth did it reflect?
Mm-hmm.
Then I appreciate that standard of beauty. Does that make sense too?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, was it truly beautiful? Then ask the question, what aspect of truth did it reflect? And if it didn't reflect truth, but it actually reflected some kind of deceptiveness or evil, even, it's not beautiful. I don't care if the whole society thinks it's beautiful. It's not beautiful. It will not go down history as something that was beautiful, but rather these fools thought it was beautiful,
Yeah.
but look where they are now.
Yeah.
Because the more society will now elevate and, give laudations to things that are not beautiful, the more decadent the society is, and the more on a free fall or downfall
Yeah.
you'll see society go. And that's actually what we are witnessing, where we don't have good standards of beauty that reflect truth. You can't call extremely obese people beautiful. Why? Is it because they're not beautiful on the inside? How dare you? That kind of thing.
Right.
I could say that because that's not the standard that they're saying. That's not the standard that they even said. What they said, the way I am physically now is beautiful. And you're saying, no. So you can't flip that on me and say, how dare you not consider their inner beauty? Because that's not even the standard that they're setting.
Yeah.
They're saying that their outer standard is beautiful.
The way they are. Right.
The way they are outside is beautiful.
Yep.
And what we were saying is that is impossible. There is no truth that is reflected by saying this is a beauty standard. You cannot be 600 pounds and say that 600-pound self is in itself beauty,
Yep.
beautiful.
Yep.
And so that's the pushback that we have. And if you're saying, well, that doesn't matter, it's about the inner self. It's not about the outer self. That kind of naive thinking is what got us here in the first place, because that's not what the people that are promulgating this stuff, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying it's the inner beauty that counts. They're not saying let's work on our character and then let it be reflected in my 600-pound self. That's not what they're saying. Because if you really thought about it, if you really thought that I need to build my character, I need to be beautiful, then you will be challenged. Your inner self and your outer self will be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
You would never be like, I'm good the way I am.
Yeah.
The fact that you said that you're good the way you are is pure arrogance. It's hubris.
Yeah.
And the fact that our Christians, our brothers and sisters, are being bamboozled into accepting this and be like, yeah, this is not a subject that we can touch. It's like what you say. It's an untouchable subject.
Yep.
Is also, it's stupid. That's what it is. And I have appreciated how you have brought up these quote unquote untouchable subjects in the past few podcasts, because if the Bible touches upon it, that's what we do.
Yeah. I mean, and I think this is an interesting topic because, like you said, this is a very sensitive topic. And people always bring up the extremes, right? Always. So for example, like if we say, we shouldn't be overweight, we shouldn't be obese, but then people always bring, well, what about those rare diseases? What about those rare cases of hormone regulation not being well? Like a lot of women have it. So like, what about them? Do you think they want to, be overweight? And then I think many times, many times, if you go to someone that has, those kind of issues with hormones or a medical condition where they gain weight, many times they will go out of their way to exercise to combat the results of those consequences.
Yeah.
Right. And so those aren't the 600-pound people that we were talking about.
Yeah. No, they're not.
And so I think it's just very interesting how when we talk about something like this, people get very, very sensitive, and then we just jump to the extremes and we say, what about this case? What about that case? And,
I think what they're trying to do, perhaps, if I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, is they're trying to protect some people that they know from feeling overly bad.
Yeah.
So that they'll go into like a depressed state.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be like the cause of someone's depression.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, over here, I guess you don't mind if we're the cause of some people's depression, so it's okay.
Who, me? No, I'm really against depression. We had that episode a couple episodes back. But
And so if you become depressed after listening to this, then you can email at Sam at Sam Yang.
yeah, email Sam at CGSNJ.
But I think even with those instances, like let's say people say, "Oh, my cortisol levels are so high because I'm so stressed."
Yeah,
That's not an ideal state that you want to be in.
right.
So in fact, you're proving the point that
Yeah.
this is not a healthy thing for you
Yeah.
to stay in.
And what I'm saying is many times people with those conditions are always trying to correct those conditions. And so they're not happy being 600 pounds. They're trying to correct it. They're doing something about it. Whereas people are using them as examples of like, how can you say she's not or he's not beautiful because they're 600 pounds? We're like, well, no, they're working on it. They know that it's wrong. They know that it's not healthy. So they're working on it. So
I think they're very, like, if people that are 600 pounds that go to the gym, nobody in the gym makes fun of them.
No.
In fact, people applaud them.
yeah,
People love it that 600-pound people are coming into the gym and working their butts off because that is admirable.
yeah,
But it's the 600-pound person that's just sitting at home, just doing whatever,
right.
that people are saying, no, get off your butt. It's not good. It's not healthy.
Yeah,
And we have come to a place that a lot of people are concerned that we can't say anything to help those 600-pound people that are sitting at home. It's their prerogative.
and they're beautiful
It's
as
their
is.
life because they are beautiful. That's how
Yeah.
we've gone from it's just their private life to now we must take what we once said was private and now give them laudations for it. So it used to be like, well, it's their life, just leave them alone. Now it's like, it's their life. We should give them accolades. We should give them prizes.
Right.
We should lift them up on social media. They're so beautiful.
I want to continue talking about beauty because I think that's something that our society today struggles with. It's to match what we think is beautiful. And again, social media has a lot to do with it. Like Hollywood culture has to do a lot with it. It's just who you see on the TV screen has a lot to do with it. And I think that's why right now they're even, having advertisements for fashion companies where the models are overweight, which I think is a whole different topic. But I am curious, as a Christian, what is a healthy way of viewing beauty? We talked about the beauty of who the person is, the character. And of course, that's what beauty is, as the Bible describes. But we live in a world and we all have eyes. How do we live in a world and kind of combat and live in a world that just goes goo-goo for these, for physical beauty? Can we partake in any bit of it? How do we kind of think and navigate through that?
Yeah, there definitely is physical beauty that is just obvious. And again, I believe it has to do with how it reflects the truth. But there is a beauty that is not fading, and physical beauty is fading. Even if you're the most beautiful woman or man today, in 10 years from now, you will not be. That's just the reality of life. Physical beauty is something that fades. You could use it now to your advantage, whatever way you want, but what lasts? And that's what we need to focus on. So if you have, let's say, a superpower that you understand lasts only 10 years at most, what are you going to do with those 10 years? And are you going to try to garner as much fame as you can, as much money as you can? What are you going to do with that physical beauty? In fact, the Bible does tell us that this is not something that we should be going for. In fact, we should be going for the things, like it says in 1 Corinthians, that won't burn up, the things that will last, the precious metals that will last even though the fire comes.
Yeah.
That you should be building up your character. And will beauty help you do that? Absolutely, beauty will help you do that if you use beauty properly. If you use beauty improperly, you will sacrifice your character or your potential to build character for other gain. And so I get it. A lot of people listening to this, they're young. You're beautiful when you're young. In fact, even if you don't think you're beautiful, you are the most beautiful you will be physically right now in your 20s and 30s, perhaps. But what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
Who cares if you're beautiful or more beautiful or less beautiful than others if you're not doing anything with that beauty? It's such a waste. And so the waste is because you haven't been building your character. You haven't been building your house. You haven't been putting down your foundation. So by the time you're 50 or 60, if you just simply relied on your physical good looks, then by the time you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, those things will, be less worth. You'll get less commodity for it. You'll just be sad. You'll be angry. You'll be resentful. And that's exactly what we see in, like you said, in Hollywood, where people that get older grow more resentful. It's because, men can do this until they're 80 and women can't do it past their 40s or whatever that the case is. And then everybody else is supposed to get upset about that. It's like, instead of thinking about the beauty that every stage in life possesses. For women, women go through body changes throughout their whole life. And those body changes happen when you are pregnant, when you give birth, postpartum, as you raise children, as you, nurse your child. All these things, your body changes and morphs. And each stage in that body is supposed to reflect the truth about who God is. And that in itself is beautiful. I'm sorry if society doesn't recognize it, but God does. And the Bible shows us that godly people recognize it. And so I do believe that it's very important for us to recognize that what stage you are in this life, you've been given these things, these prompts, these tools, these gifts, this particular season to build your character, to build that foundation, to glorify God with. And if you're not doing that, then it's unfortunate, but you'll see later in life, you will end up with full of regret.
Yeah, and kind of along the lines of what you just said, I find it interesting that the world idolizes youth, even from different generations past, the fountain of youth is idolized as something that you look for. You want to look younger. If you tell an older gentleman or a lady that they look younger than their age, they start shining, right? Because that's the compliment that they want. That's why they put on lotion or something. I don't know. But I mean, we read in Proverbs 16, gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. And we see the beauty of gray hair even, and how the Bible looks at just the wisdom of a full righteous life to be something that's beautiful. And I think that's something that we forget often.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily want to show off your wrinkles,
No.
But yeah, I mean, if you put lotion on, it's not a bad thing, Sam, okay?
No, so I started doing that.
Now, please put on lotion. It'll help you maintain your skin's vitality.
Do you know you have to put on sunblock every day?
I found that out like last year.
So the thing is, my wife knew. She never told me. She's a secret keeper.
Yeah, my wife told me that I need to put on sunblock. She's like, you have to put on sunblock every day. I I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, what if it's cloudy? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because UVs or something.
Yeah, but I don't put it on every day. I should put it on every day, but I don't.
I started to.
Yeah, I think I should now.
It's really annoying. It made me think too, like, I know we talked about Christian liberty before, and we even talked about, plastic surgery and Botox and all these other things where we try to beautify ourselves. Is that okay? And I know that you gave an answer where it was, if it's glorifying to God, there's no right or wrong answer in that sense. It's not black and white. But I'm just curious because so many Christians are always thinking about stuff like that. Like, our ear piercings okay because they serve no function. Our lip piercings okay, they serve no function. It's like just strictly for beauty. There's no function. You can't eat food better because you have your lip pierced. Tattoos, it's straight for aesthetics.
Yeah. So when we say it's only for aesthetics and it has no functional use, aesthetics in itself can be functional. It's just not functional in the way where we're thinking, the primary ways like eating or sleeping or,
right. Breathing.
Yeah, having a roof over our heads or something to that effect.
Yeah.
There are some reasons to have aesthetics. So because if you don't think aesthetics are important, then why art? Why would you even paint a painting? Aesthetics have a place in our society, so I don't think we should downplay that too much. However, aesthetics in itself, and only for the self, is vanity. Again, the beauty has to, let's take that principle, beauty has to reflect truth. So when you have a painting and it reflects truth, then it truly is beautiful. It's modern art that has really gotten us to a place of confusion, in my opinion, where you'll draw a streak on a canvas and say, look how
Art.
beautiful it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can interpret it the way you want.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you serious?
It's so
This is
good.
trash. Yeah, get this trash out of here. Stop selling this trash for $20 million because
I should do that.
people are just using it as a scam for their
Yeah.
taxes or something, right?
Yeah.
But it's a scam, and we're all being bamboozled. So art has to reflect beauty. And if you say something like, oh, well, beauty is just in the eye of the beholder, I want to go back to the ultimate beholder. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. If it's truth, then we recognize that the ultimate beholder is God. If it's beautiful, it's because God. That's what it is.
Right.
And so we'll go back to the earring thing. Should you wear earrings? Should you wear makeup? I think you need to put the standard as God. Does this glorify God? Or am I doing this simply for vanity's sake? Because if that's the case, that is dangerous. We can go into the nitty gritty about whether makeup is a deception where you're fooling somebody, right?
Oh.
Like, up to what point is it deception?
Yeah.
Or shouldn't you look as beautiful as you can for the public? Why would you want to be medium beautiful when you have the ability? Let's say you're really skilled in the arts and you could put makeup on yourself that really makes you look astounding in society's eyes. Is that a sin though? Because once you take off that makeup, you look like a completely different person. And then you go to the point where, well, why can't I just do plastic surgery then? Why is that a sin? Because instead of applying makeup every day, let me just put a little more permanent fixture on my face or move it this way or that way. How is that a sin? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be as beautiful as I possibly can.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Because you have strong feelings about makeup and stuff, right?
I don't think being beautiful or trying to be beautiful is a bad thing. And I think it ultimately has to do with the purpose, the intention, the goal. I think vanity is excessive desire or excessive, I even looked it up. It's
So even in Proverbs 31, isn't there a section about how she adorns herself?
Mhm.
So that's, like jewelry, makeup.
But then in First Peter, don't we also read that women aren't to adorn themselves with gold and stuff like that, but it's the character that matters?
Well, let's look it up. Let's look up 1 Timothy chapter 2, 9 to 11.
Sorry, it was 1 Timothy, not 1 Peter. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9 to 11 reads, likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works.
And then 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 3 and 4. Well, 5 is good. Yeah.
Oh, I was right. 1 Peter. Oh, okay.
Yep,
1
they're
Peter
all
chapter
good.
3, verse 3 to 5 reads, do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves by submitting to their own husbands.
Yeah. I mean, this is why perhaps the women of the age will adorn themselves otherwise, because they would hate to follow the word of God. If you hate to follow the word of God, then you don't want to adorn yourself this way. This way is kind of crazy. Why would you do this? How dare you say this? And so we see in the Bible, this is in verse 4 of chapter 3 in 1 Peter, it says, which in God's sight is very precious. Which in God's sight is very precious. When the Bible uses the word very, we should really take note. It means in the Greek, It's polyteleis. So there's poly, which is many, and then teleis, which you could see where it comes from. When you put it together, you have the word costly, which is expensive or very precious. Okay. And so when you see this word, you would say that's true costliness to God. That's what's precious to God, is if a woman has a gentle and quiet spirit. How many of our women today really believe that to be the case? Why don't they if they don't? That's, I think, the question we need to ask. And if you don't believe your quietness and gentle spirit is beautiful, is it because no one regards it as beautiful? That could be. It could be because you want to rage against the word of God. It could be. It could be all these things. I think it's a whole plethora of reasons, but we want to get back to what the Bible says. And if you're not to adorn yourself physically, but rather adorn yourself with good works, right? Like it says in 1 Peter, Paul says not to focus on the braids, right? Because if your focus is on that, then you'll miss out on what is truly important. You can be born beautiful. And I'm not saying that you should slash up your face if you're beautiful. I don't think anybody says that. The point is, that's not where you should put all your focus on. That's not what you should put all your effort on. But isn't it because men, perhaps, that's what they want? They just want that outward adornment. That's what catches their eye, because men in themselves also are not in a holy place. So it's not just women, it's also men. It is a complementarian thing where both men and women affect each other. And so I don't think you can hate on one sex without understanding how the other sex is involved. And so we want to make sure that as we understand the word of God, that we want to submit to it, both men and women, meaning men understand what beauty is too, as well as women understand what beauty is too. So both people or both sexes need to understand what beauty is for this to really shine through in our communities. And so if you just go to women, it's like, stop being beautiful. You got to be ugly and just work on the self. That really won't work. Honestly, it won't work. It needs to be a community thing where you change the culture, where you change the society that way. When Peter and Paul were writing, they weren't just writing to one sex. They were writing to the entire church.
So what you're saying is this text and what the Bible tells us is not that you shouldn't look beautiful or that you shouldn't try to look as beautiful as you can, but rather it's what is your primary focus?
Yeah, you're trying to be as beautiful as you can. Why? Why are you focusing so much on your external adornment?
Yeah.
Isn't it because that for some reason you have been convinced that this is where your worth comes from?
Yeah.
And the Bible continues to tell us this otherwise.
Yeah.
It could be the reinforcing of your husband. Maybe your husband is reinforcing that, or society is reinforcing that, or maybe you are, suffering from that lack of knowledge too. And so I believe it should speak to the whole of society when we talk about women or just beauty in general.
Thank you for that. I think that's helpful. And I think a lot of people may have questions on this topic as well. Like I said, it's sensitive to some, and this may be an untouchable to others. And so we would love to hear your thoughts. If you disagree, we would love to hear your thoughts. If you agree, I guess that's cool too. But we thank you for that, Pastor Jin. And please email us if you have any questions on anything that was discussed. Before we end this morning, we did have a current event that I wanted to bring up. There was an article by Andrew T. Walker in World Opinions titled, "We're All Incrementalists Now," in response to Donald Trump's video that said abortion ought to be an issue worked out in the states, and the Republicans from Arizona shying away from and criticizing Arizona Supreme Court upholding the state's abortion ban by appealing to a law from 1864. We are incrementalists, and that's what the article says, meaning we are to make changes by degrees, by steps. We are to do whatever we can in our context of democracy to support the life of the unborn. We have to mobilize, support, vote, and reach people with good arguments and accurate information. Everyone has a role to play. And that's kind of what the article talks about. I was just kind of curious of your thoughts. How is a Christian to act in our context, which is democracy? How do we fight abortion tooth and nail, knowing that, perhaps the laws that we are voting on aren't really pro-life? It's more of how early can you terminate the pregnancy? And so how do we fight abortion tooth and nail as a Christian in this context, knowing that these laws that people are asking us to vote on are not perfect?
Yeah. The former president's words were unfortunate. And so it was unfortunate that, he spoke out against the Arizona state law being upheld by their Supreme Court. It's unfortunate that he won't take the sure pro-life stance. But, this is something that I think all Christians kind of feel. They feel like they have been let down by the statements that the former president made. But at the same time, there are people who say that, well, this is a political move. It's not necessarily a moral move. And I just wanted to speak on that. Whatever President Trump said, was it a good political move and a bad moral move? And we try to dichotomize that. We try to separate that. And I don't necessarily do that. I don't think that that's a good way to do things. I do believe that the means justify the ends. And so those are important things for us to recognize. If we don't get that right, then we will continue to think that the ends justify the means. Is that what I said?
So I think you meant to say means don't justify the end.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Right.
So if we think that the ends justify the means, then we're wrong. That's the point. So
yeah.
A lot of people think that we just need to win. As long as the Republicans win, that's the main point. And I am on the side where I will humbly suggest that that's not our end. That's not our goal, just to simply win. I believe we do need to take a moral stance on this one. And I am, as you all know, I'm not an incrementalist. I'm an abolitionist when it comes to abortion. We need to stop this. This is outright murder. And no sane society can continue to hold on to this and think that God will continue to bless it. But that being said, when this person came out and said that we're all incrementalists now, it is pointing to something that I think a nuance in politics that I believe that, is being, I guess, displayed for us to see. If we don't, let's say if we pick anybody from the Democratic Party, Biden, it doesn't matter. They are just absolutists when it comes to abortion.
Yep.
100% abortion, okay?
Yep.
Obviously, Trump is not an absolutist when it comes to pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
He is somewhere in some kind of spectrum. But what that also means is that when he elects judges, he will elect judges somewhere along the spectrum. But if we elect someone that is from the Democratic Party, then you know that you will absolutely get someone that is pro-abortion. That there's no question. They're not going to put someone on the judge's seat that is pro-life. But when you go to the Republican side, you will get people on the pro-life side to whatever degree, okay? So that's what he means by incrementalists. We won't get that absolution, or the abolition rather, from, that abortion point of view from Trump anymore. We see that. It's unfortunate, but the reason why people are saying this is because they see a nuance in the politics of it all. I hope that was clear. Was that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're saying we can't go crazy. You can't say we're not going to vote for Trump because he's not a pure abolitionist. Because the argument that they're making is if you do that, then you are effectively giving that vote to Biden or a Democrat, which would make it a sure thing that a pro-abortionist would be on the judge's stand instead of someone somewhere along the way of pro-life. That makes sense too?
Yeah.
So that's the argument that they're making. It's a pretty compelling argument, to be honest. A person that I follow on X is a pastor named Todd Pruitt.
Yep.
And he also was extremely disappointed at Trump's words. But he also has been convicted about what people have been saying about the incrementalism. We don't have to be incrementalist to adopt an incrementalist. Does that make sense? So we don't have to be incrementalists to say that we will vote for an incrementalist when the opposing side is a complete abortionist.
Right.
And so that's the argument that evangelicals are making in X. And I get it that the audience that I'm probably speaking to are people that are pro-life. So if you're not pro-life, then obviously none of this makes sense to you, or nor do you care, probably. But because we're Christian and we're pro-life, we want to take the most wise way possible, at the same time knowing where our moral ground is. So even if you adopt an incrementalist position, then I pray that you will not take the incrementalist stand, that you will be abolitionist, saying if it's an evil, it's an evil. If it's life from conception, that's the basis where we start from. Any discussion that we have, we start from that basis, okay? You want to save as many lives as possible, then do it, you know? But if you were saying, if it was up to me, why would I stop it at just as many lives as possible? I would just say save all the lives, right? Why would you do it as many lives? And so we are abolitionists when it comes to abortion.
Thank you for that. I think that's helpful because, again, this is something that people will be thinking about as this is an election year. And so this is something that people will be thinking about. I'm sure are currently thinking about and will continue to think about as well. So thank you for that context. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church podcast. Join us next week. And by the way, I did want to point out that very, very soon we will have our podcast on video. This is very interesting. So people are always like, oh, you know, you have such a voice for radio. People will also know that I have a face for radio as well, which is a joke that people have made to me.
How do you have a face for radio?
They're just saying that I'm ugly.
Oh,
like I shouldn't be seen. That type of thing.
That's so unfortunate.
It's not unfortunate. It's just rude and mean, I think. And I take great offense.
Oh, it's not true. I think Trinzik is very good looking.
I don't think I'm going to be on video, though.
Maybe you will. But also, our merch that people have been waiting 4 months for will be coming soon. We've been waiting with, we were just kind of working with a designer, if you will. And that has been ironed out. And so those will be shipping out soon. And so if you have emailed us, you know who you are. We didn't respond to any of them because if you emailed us, you got it. And so you will receive those that merch in the next couple weeks. So look out for that.
Are you going to start dressing nicer on Fridays?
I guess I'll have to.
Yeah, we will coordinate our outfits, I think.
Like do we like color scheme or?
Yeah, I
like
think
what?
so. Like what kind of Jordans we're going to wear.
Oh, we should be like one of those like very hype podcasts, you know, like how reformers are very reformed.
Did you see the sweater that Steve Furtick wore on Easter?
No.
He wore this large sweater and then people looked it up and it's a $2,000 sweater.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a lot of money.
If I have anything that in my entire ensemble, I would equal $2,000. So
we could do like a Jordan 4's day. Everyone just wears Jordan 4s. We could. Maybe we'll do that. So tune in very soon. We have a whole setup coming along. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith. Peace.